Hello, I'm Ed Peters from GE Coaching, and our friends at Iden University and EURAS have asked us to record as professional coaches some reflections on the current situation. We are very aware that for many students this is a time of extreme uncertainty, not only about exams and finishing degrees, but also in terms of how the workplace will look in the future and how graduates will fit into that. There are many uncertainties, and of course for many other students it's a question that they are still abandoned somewhat outside their own country and can't return, and that must be another very difficult situation to manage. So of course as coaches our job is to help people design the future they want and to achieve it, and that seems a very tall order at the moment when there is so much that we don't know. And of course the problem with not knowing is that we feel a greater sense of lack of control, and the more we feel we are losing that control, the greater the sense of anxiety, fear and stress becomes, and those fearful thoughts go round and round our heads, especially if we are stuck in one place all the time and can't move, and the fear and the anxiety grow. What can we do about that? Well, I would suggest there are a number of things we can do, and I would put them all under the heading of regaining some control. Now with a pandemic outside our doors, that seems quite a perverse thing to say, but I'll illustrate it with a model that we use in NLP, in Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it's called the circles of control. So imagine that there are 3 circles in front of you, 3 concentric circles. The innermost circle consists of the things that you can control directly. So for example, you can control when you decide to get up, you can control what you have for lunch, you can control when you do some work and when you make a call to a friend. All of those are directly under your control. What's its relevance here? Well, let's see if we can bring more things into that circle. So for example, can I create a routine around my days at the moment that give me certain fixed points that I can control? When I do some reading, when I do some background work, when I connect with all the people that I'm currently missing. Add that routine into your day and you've brought a little more control back with that. So that's your innermost circle. Your outermost circle is sometimes referred to as the circle of concern, because the things that live in that circle are all things that you cannot control at all. So for example, you cannot control the fact there is a pandemic, you cannot control the date, you cannot control which day of the week it is, you cannot control the weather. All of those things are well beyond our direct control. So what is the relevance of this circle to our current situation? Well, we can't control the things themselves, but we can control how we choose to respond. We can control the meaning we give to things. For example, we can choose not to catastrophize what's happening, though let's be realistic, it is very serious indeed. However, we can reframe that, as we say in coaching, to something slightly different. We can reframe it to say, okay, this is very bad, I don't like this, I don't want it, however I know it will end. We've reframed it, and therefore you've just kind of taken away a little bit of the fear. I'll give you another example of that. In the British press this week was a very interesting phrase that said, you are not stuck at home, you are safe at home. Interesting idea, because people will be feeling a little bit bored and restless in their homes. But in fact, if you see this as, actually, I'm safer here, people outside are less safe than me, then you've reframed it in another way. And reframing something, as we said, diminishes its impact, diminishes the anxiety. So that's the outermost circle, the circle of concern. What about the second circle? Well, the second circle in the middle is known as the circle of influence. The circle of influence contains things that we cannot control directly. However, we can have an influence on the outcome. we can make that outcome more favourable to us. Let me give you an example. If you have, for example, an online interview for a master's that you're applying for, or you have a job interview for an internship or a graduate traineeship, and you know that the decision is not yours. You cannot make that decision as to whether you get that internship or master's place or not. However, it'll be obvious to you that you can do an awful lot to make that more likely. So with that job interview for the internship, you can choose to turn up early. You can choose to research the company. You can choose to devise some interesting questions beforehand, all of which will increase the likelihood of success. It won't make it guaranteed, but your odds have suddenly improved a great deal. So whether you are in the inner circle, the outer circle, or the middle circle, things you can control, things you can't control, things you can't control but can influence, there is something we can all do at the moment to regain control in all of those areas. A couple of points to finish with. One is to observe the language you use. Don't forget, when we talk and think to ourselves, we use the language of everyday speech. If that language is full of catastrophizing words that make things feel worse, then of course that will influence directly our state. Think about the way and the words you choose to talk to yourselves, and think about how you respond when other people use that highly emotive language that is understandable, perfectly understandable, but perhaps isn't helping your sense of anxiety. And then finally, for those of you who are familiar with mindfulness and the effects of reflection and meditation, think about the idea for mindfulness that you focus on the breath and allow thoughts to disappear. You know they're there, those thoughts exist, that's fine, they exist. And you know they're negative, you know their emotional impact. But just for that time when you're reflecting and meditating, you step back from them. You let them pass in front of you. You recognize them for what they are, but you're not going to let them stay with you. And taking that step backwards, whether you do that in meditation or you do that in some other way, and just giving yourself some greater objectivity on the situation, will also help you to feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more in control, and start to look at what could well happen in the future that will be a positive outcome from all the difficulties we have at the moment. So thinking about those positive outcomes, hopefully you'll stay safe, and hopefully we'll be able to meet at a EURAS event in the future.